Good evening, everyone. I have been quite a while since I got going with one of these recordings, so give me some grace. And my guest as well, but we'll introduce Lori in just a second. It has been quite a whirlwind of activity as I change business around a little bit here. And it got me thinking about this world of the entrepreneur woman. We retire from certain things, and we kind of move along from having our babies and stepping into the world. And so this evening I was really excited to be inviting Lori Borthwick to have a conversation with me and understand what on earth ever got her to running in politics. Politics and me, I say, oh, let me away from that. Thank you very much. It's not my world. But I also have opened up my own businesses, and it's almost like that. So this evening, everyone, I want to welcome Lori Borthwick to my program. And Lori is the candidate for the Green Party, the fourth party. I call it the fourth. That's five fingers. I call it the fourth party in Canada. I don't know whether that's wise or not, but you certainly get my vote simply because I like who you are and what you stand for.
Oh,
And
thank
I'm just thrilled to see a woman of our stature.
you.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yes.
Stepping up into the world for things we believe in, because that's who I think we are. So, Lori, just give us a little background of who is Lori Borthwick.
Well, Sandra, I when you were saying about how we just move into the world along different pathways, that certainly has been the case for me. I started in 1989, came to Belleville, and was a respiratory therapist at Belleville General Hospital. Over the years, we switched from just working in Belleville to supporting Trenton Memorial Hospital, Bancroft in Prince Edward County. And it was a very busy, stressful job, but I sure learned a lot about people, the people of this community, and what they needed in their lives, and also so often the issues that they were facing. So after many years, I retired just pre-pandemic, and then went back for a little bit post-pandemic. But I had gotten involved. I thought, how can we make things better for our community? And I got frustrated because I was worried about climate change and the issues that surround that loss of biodiversity. And I would go to the different politicians' offices, and they weren't really listening to me. And I thought, how do we change this so that they're listening to their constituents and not just special interest groups
I
that
love
have
that.
money?
I love that. I'm just going to hike right back to that stint, those numbers of years in the healthcare. You nurse during the COVID as well?
Yes, I went back. So, as a respiratory therapist, we deal mostly with people on life support systems.
Oh,
So, people on ventilators. So, the sickest patients. And so I did have some COVID patients, some of whom passed away. It was actually quite frightening at the beginning of the pandemic, and very stressful for staff because we I found out that our pandemic supplies had been allowed to outdate, and we were told we were given these, thank goodness, industrial P100 masks, but they're a hard plastic, and they're reusable. We were expected to clean them ourselves between rooms and patients, and all I could think of is if I make a mistake, that could be me on that ventilator because I was in the age group that apparently was at risk. So it was a stressful time. It was relief for me to get the immunization, knowing that it really reduced my risk of serious illness. And so I was like, oh. And then they just kept hiring young people, and then I was like, "I don't think I'm needed here anymore. I'm gonna go back to my retirement."
But that had to be so scary. But the other thing is, again, I mean, I've been blessed to get to know you over these last few years and to think how intimately you understand the healthcare system, which is so got so many broken parts to it right now. I'm
Mm.
really blessed with the doctor I'm with now. It's the Queen's Clinic.
Oh, yeah, Queen's Health Team.
Yeah, they have such a system. I don't know why everybody's not using the system. I
Yes.
really don't understand. There are fixes. And with
Yes.
voices like yours, you know what it's like in the halls. My sister's a retired nurse. I I'm just adamant about knowing I'm supporting someone who is intimate with the healthcare system and really understands. But that's not all who Lori is, because once you're retired from the nursing end of it, you got your camera out. So I don't think that was brand new because those photos you do are beautiful. And they were all nature and all these wonderful spaces. And we are the Bay of Quinte. We've got
Mhm.
beautiful conservation areas. Tell us about some of your pet peeves there.
Oh, well, yes, it was kind of a mental health restructuring, I'd say, that led me to spend so much time in nature
Oh,
uh, over my retirement. And even before, of course, I always loved being outside. It's regenerative. And I used to take pictures with my cell phone, but I actually have a little camera now that's pretty good. And I was just, I met this amazing man, John Lowry, and he knows simply every natural area across this whole area of interest, which just extends past the Bay of the Bay of Quinte riding. And we went hiking and taking pictures from like all across the South Shore of Picton, all the way up through like Beaver Meadow and then, into Belleville. And then we spent a lot of time in the Bell Creek watershed documenting the various species there because there is a lot of pressure on that area for housing. And it is a really important watershed. The water that comes through the Bell Creek watershed is going right into our Bay of Quinte. We're drinking that water and it that those wetlands in that area, it is amazing and beautiful, and it houses so many species. So we spent a lot of time in there just documenting and taking pictures so that when they're thinking and making decisions on how to build housing, that they understand what's there and what's at risk.
yeah, there has to be other ways of having appropriate and affordable housing for everyone in some way and still have room for the nature, which was here long before us, just,
Oh
just like the
yes.
sacred lands we're on.
Yes.
It blows my mind that we have to do silly things like infringe on those special places. We maybe as a population start to think, oh, that's a nice place to go for a walk, but without thinking about how it supports our lives.
Yes.
It
Yes.
supports our lives.
Yes. We can't live on this planet as the only species. That would never work. And it's a intricate web of life, and the more you learn about it, it's so exciting to see that I didn't understand that the mycorrhiza, which is fungi in the forest floor, is giving nutrients from one tree to another tree, sugars, and they're sending chemical signals, and the trees are actually in contact and able to, in their way, communicate with each other. And that if you are, say, a mother oak tree, you can send nutrients to your children oak trees. It's just really incredible. We have vastly underestimated uh, just how intricate this web of life is. And the more you learn and study about it, the more amazing and exciting it becomes. And we're really lucky in our riding. especially within Belleville itself, there is a lot of land that's available that could be developed within our urban boundaries that wouldn't require us to develop these very sensitive areas that
Hmm.
would allow us to stay out of those areas. And as Greens, the one thing we just came up with was we have had a really good housing plan, but they just created an incentive for developers to build within urban boundaries the kind of housing we need. So if you build a house that's less than 2,000 square feet, the government of Ontario will pay the development charges
Ah.
and the developer won't have to pay them. And that would, as long as that would really save about $100,000 or more per home. And then in order to make sure that the cities aren't losing that very important income, we would have an affordable housing fund that supports the municipalities and funds them so that they don't miss those development charges. But we really need to build the kind of housing that people can afford.
Hmm. And the other thing I think, what I've really enjoyed is I've gotten to know more about and participate more with the Green Party in general. And I've got the sign out on the front yard there. I figure if they have to fight a little harder to get my vote because I've gone green, it'll let the others fight a little bit harder to pull up, and maybe they'll listen to the Green. That's really what I want. I want them to listen
Absolutely.
and participate. I was going to say something really stunning, and then I was just gone right up the other side. So I'm going to need support. But yes, in some ways, I think that we've gotten a little bit too proud. In the old days, the families lived together. That doesn't mean that you want to move back in with mom and dad and all the generations, but everybody seems to think they have to have all their own space or they need a larger space. I'm in a tiny 500 square foot in my own home so that I can stay in my own home. And
Yeah.
I've got two other little one-bedroom apartments, approximately the same size. So three of us are sharing this house, and we're out of each other's hair. Like,
Hmm.
I think we need to stop worrying about all the junk and material crap
Yes.
and
Yeah.
get back to just I was doing a meditation this morning of gratitude to make sure that you're setting up a space of your own intimacy and your own love. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, my little 500 square foot, it is my nest.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
is my nest. I don't have to go and create a little ritual space because my space is my nest. And I think that in so many ways, we need to help people stop and think about what matters. And so
Yes.
that again is why, with your nursing background,
Hmm.
the importance of having good health care and the nature. It's just so special. I mean, it just breaks my heart to think about any highways going through green belts, and it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. You're making tunnels under Toronto or wherever they're talking about. Let's just get back to love and nature and
Yes.
people.
Really, all you need to have a happy life is a safe place to live, a safe space to live in, and warm relationships, people that love you and that you love, and food, enough food to sustain yourself.
Mhm.
And a lot of the other things we think we need, we really don't require them. And that most people, if you edit or kind of watch where they live in their homes, they really only use about 2 rooms of their home. So these massive homes are, they're status symbol, they're beautiful, but they're not necessary.
No, they're not
And I think
necessary.
we need to start thinking about what's necessary and what's sustainable with life on this earth. My partner John often likes to say the earth is like a big 100-room mansion, and every
Like that.
species had a room, and now, humans have taken 99 of the rooms, and all of the species are trying to live in this one room. But we're not just living in these 99 rooms, we're taking out the walls, we're ruining the water system, we're polluting the air, and they're just cowering in this one room, waiting for us to come
Wow.
and take that from them as well. And I think about that quite often. I'm trying to create rewilding and create a space, because if every person who has even a little yard took a third of that yard and allowed it to be more natural with native wildflowers and plants and shrubs, that would help to sustain that web of life. We could do a lot
Well,
together.
my friend Erica is a natural herbalist, so she just sent me some
Oh,
usnea. Usnea. Apparently, that's the fungus that's on the branches way up high in a particular kind of tree, which she was doing some clearing
oh,
and taking down some dead trees. And she said, "Oh my goodness, there's this whole bunch of usnea, and it's a very highly potent medicine."
oh,
So she sent
very
me
cool.
some. But to be
Whoa.
able to recognize and use natural
Hmm.
medication as well,
Yes,
just the whole system needs to talk together. I think it's so much communication,
yes,
and same thing applies then over to climate change.
yes.
My goodness, we've had some snow and some cold weather, but we haven't had the dumps in the last couple of years. I recognize the snow dumps that we had were similar to these almost like tropical rainstorms and windstorms that we're having now. We didn't used to have those. And I've
No.
been in the tropics in those sudden, horrendous downfalls. And that's what these are feeling like. Like climate
Yeah.
change is happening, and we're a part of that.
Oh, absolutely. And this winter, I don't know if you've noticed, but to me, we have had, like, you'll get a very deep freeze, -20, and
Hmm.
that'll last 24 hours, maybe less, and then back up 1, 2 degrees, and then back down to the cold. And if I follow this fellow who is the All Hazards Consortium, he's from the US, and he has all these satellite images, and he tells you about the weather. And he showed the cold over North America and around the world. And in times before we had disrupted the climate to the extent that we have, the jet stream was fairly circular, and it didn't it would move, but it wasn't wavy. It was faster, and it was a more tight circle around the North Pole. But now, because we've had so much warming at the pole, the jet stream has become slow and it meanders. And when you showed this cold, it looked like an amoeba on the top of the earth instead of a round cap like it used to be. And that's why we're getting these huge fluctuations in temperature from -22 up to plus 2 or 3 within a day or two. And we're having those hard rain events, those very deep snow events. And with the lakes not freezing, the Great Lakes not freezing the way they were, the cold wind comes over and we get a lot of snow. So we'll be getting increasing impacts of the snow flurries, lake effect snow, as long as the lakes are not frozen.
I think
Uh,
that's what's been happening because I've been in a lake effect over in the States between Syracuse and Watertown. I could not see a thing. And my cousin had talked about that for, I would say,
Years.
decades.
Yeah.
But here on our side, it used to be just up and around the Coburg area. And then it started to come down to the Brighton area. And now it's Trenton and Belleville right on through. And then it would rise again in Kingston. But Napanee is terrible now. And so you get all these multi vehicle accidents happening.
Yes. Well,
And
and in the summer we had this summer we had one day of really hard rain that lasted about an hour or two. We lost power to a good part of the city, and my workplace, cardiology services group, they weren't able to open that day because nobody could get in. There was a flood, and that was literally 1 hour of a rain event. And so we're particularly susceptible in Belleville to flooding, in the county to drought. We need to plan some resiliency going forward. And that's never a fun thing to explain to people about why you need to spend money on increasing your infrastructure. But we have to plan for it going forward.
That and the other thing I really like, since I've been involved more with the Greens, is the speaker series that you recognized. We have an opportunity here to educate people.
Yes.
So you've set up a speaker series, and I would love for it to be advertised a little more fully so that more people get involved. But it's interesting, and
Hmm.
it's useful. So you've got ideas as well, I think, for education. I don't know just where that one's at, other than the education within the nature. Where's your stand on education?
So we just for our education plan, we're underfunded in Ontario for public school education at a rate far below all the other provinces.
Oh,
And at this point, we are so our plan is to put $1,500 per student in immediately to cover the shortfall of about $3.2 billion that has occurred in our education system since Doug Ford took office in 2018, and to immediately fast track the large buildup of maintenance requests that we have within our public schools and high schools. Those are our two main focuses at this point, but as well as capping class sizes, increasing teachers, and making sure that they have educational assistants.
mm,
All of those are part of our plan. And for post secondary, as we've seen at Loyalist, they just announced they'd have to cut 30% of their programs.
wow.
And we again fund our post-secondary education at 57% of the level of all the other provinces in Canada. So we're the last in almost every metric for spending per capita in Ontario compared to every other province in Canada. So this is why our post-secondary institutions have had to bring in uh, students from other countries who can are charged a much higher tuition than a Canadian student would be paying.
Hmm.
And they're depending upon the dollars that these students are bringing to them. And if we funded our post-secondary to the level that we should be funding, they would not be so dependent upon this um, money from foreign students. But
Right.
the students could still be coming, but maybe not quite in the numbers all at once as they have been.
It's a huge portion right now, for sure.
Yes. Well, the problem is it's putting pressure on our housing system
Yes,
and
it
our
is.
rental system. Because and also it's unfair to these students because I'm pretty sure a lot of them are not expecting to come here and have to spend the amount of money they are spending for a place to stay.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that were under,
Well, we
you know.
would hope that their orientation would clear that up, but I think they are surprised when they get here, because I've traveled all over the world. So when I see people from other countries, I'm always perking up and talking to them and asking
Yeah.
questions. But I was going to say, going back 50 years, I was a school teacher myself. And at that time, we had a special needs class. And so the children that needed the extra care were actually in special needs classes. And they came to my regular classes for the
Aspect.
social aspects, the art, social studies, music, things like that. So they were still integrated, but they got the special care they needed for the reading, writing, arithmetic. And
Mhm.
somehow they've taken that all apart and said, no, integration means these kids that need special help are going to have their special one-on-one in a regular classroom where they can disrupt the classroom from moving through. To me, it's just madness. And it
Mhm.
equals the same madness. And this is my opinion. This has nothing to do with the Greens or anybody else. This is my opinion, that it follows just as much destruction as having removed institutions for many of the homeless who are. They closed the psych hospital decades ago. They literally, I've got the books that are authored by a couple of people that came out of there. They literally opened the doors and said, off you go find your place. Like, it's madness. So we've
Yeah.
got homeless people, many who could work if we would smarten up and let them get to work, even on parks and so on. But no, that has to be protected and pay a high income to somebody because there's a contract there.
Mm. Yeah.
It makes no sense. People who need to be able to get working and do something constructive in exchange for getting supported, I think that's critical. Certain ones need the group homes and the institutions, and they need that care. And it's just horrendous. You're afraid to walk where the homeless are, and that's a sad state because you don't know what state they're in.
Yes, sometimes with the mental health and addictions issues that can lead to homelessness,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're not sure if somebody might be having an issue that day and they seem agitated. Yeah, I personally sometimes I worry and I might walk, a little bit further around, and that saddens me.
Mm-hmm.
It saddens me to see people struggling like that. Uh, you know, uh it seems to me that as a society, we should be
Yes.
able to do a lot better than that. And I was excited. I got to go to Greater St. James Place, which is
Mm.
on Great St. James Road, and it's with the All Together Living. Is a nonprofit that worked with a private builder to build this amazing and really beautiful apartment complex. And they have apartments for people who have or different disabilities that they require in-home care, 3
Oh,
apartments for them, and caregivers are there to help them with their daily activities. They also have, apartments for people who have transitioned from Shiloh House, which is, the transition from the Grace Inn shelter,
okay.
and they have supports and wraparound, and they have a kitchen, and they have coffee, and they have a television there in a main room, and they have staff there, and they also have market rent, in the part that so I think the builder owns like 50% or 49, and the alliance or the altogether housing owns 49 or vice versa. And it's a way to support like it in I think it's also they have another apartment building complexes on Sydney Street. But it
Oh,
really gave me hope that
yes.
this group of volunteers got together and found a way to make housing work and it for everybody.
To be
Uh,
creative.
to be creative and have the supports for those that need them,
Mm-hmm.
and yet still and not create like a ghetto environment, because
Right.
there's people there paying market rent, enjoying the beautiful apartments, and they're getting to know their neighbors and they're creating community, and they're working together, and I just thought that was
Beautiful.
yeah, that's what Canadians are about, I think. We're always looking to find
Right.
solutions and work together. And as Greens, that is the like our model for to build 60,000 supportive units across Ontario. That is the model. Work with nonprofits and build a housing for those that need it with supports, as you say, Sandra, that we can't just open the doors and expect these
No,
vulnerable people to fend for themselves.
no. I'm just going to say that we're getting close to the end of our time. But it is a beautiful thing. I remember thinking, yay for you, Laurie, when you said that you were taking some of these plans to the other parties that are running here, the other three parties, and saying, listen, this is what we're about. This is what we're about. How can you help us out here? It wasn't about we're going to beat you down. It was about
No.
take some of our ideas and run with it. Here's how this housing can work. Here's how we can protect it. Here's how we can have everything. And I
Yes.
really want to applaud the Green Party in that approach, and you in particular in your passion, because it is a passion that you've come out of retirement and said, I just care so much about nature. I care so much about health and people, that here you are putting yourself on the line, knocking on doors, putting up signs. And really, the most impressive to me is taking that passion to the other political parties, the other campaigners here in town, and saying, please, please,
Yeah.
here's some
Well,
great ideas and you could make them work.
yeah. And it's I have like a vision that our elected representatives represent our needs in our community. They don't represent what Doug Ford wants to give his maybe wealthy insider buddies. I don't get told by Mike Schreiner, this is what you say and this is how you vote. Um, our elected representatives, and I somehow this has been lost in politics, they're here to represent and work for our
Us.
community,
That's
for
right.
us and our community. When Tyler gave us money for things, he didn't give us money. That's our money.
Yeah,
We paid those taxes,
that's
and
right.
they are supposed to be using the money to support us. So we shouldn't have to be thankful and, I mean, not that we should be unthankful, but
No,
they're just returning to us
it's
what is
reallocating.
ours. Yeah,
Yeah,
reallocating it back to us as they should be. And I just think, how different would it be in Queen's Park if every party group, instead of just shouting across at each other and calling each other names, what if they actually said, hey, in the Bay of Quinte, we have over 200 chronically unhoused people, and we want to try this approach. Has anyone else tried that? And
that's
then
right.
some, and that's what they should be doing. Imagine what could happen if we actually focused on what the needs of our community are. It's just, it would be a game changer. And that's what I want to see. And that's the whole reason I got into this politics, is I think there's a better way. And
That's
I just
right.
want to show people there could be a better way. You just have to vote for it. You have to want it. And you have to tell, whoever is your MPP, what matters to you. You
That's
have to.
right.
I got
Anyhow,
excited.
it's been
Sorry.
an absolute honor getting to know you over these last few years. And I
Well,
love the passion that you bring to the community. What would be your final words? What's the last thing you want to say to people about getting involved and caring?
Well, there's hundreds of ways to get involved in your community. So if you're feeling lonely or like you don't have friends or you don't know what to do, there are all sorts of groups. There's the Quinte Urban Forest Network working on growing trees in our community. There's the Quinte Field Naturalists. We're planting trees, pollinators, and there are hundreds of different ways to get involved. Everybody's looking for volunteers. There's never a reason not to have something to do. And the other thing is that democracy is uh, a fragile form of government, and it needs care. So it can't just be that you don't bother to vote, or you're too busy, or you don't want to get involved. No, that's not how democracy works. It's only going to work if everybody does get involved, get active, ask questions. If you don't like how things are going, just phone up your MPP's office, go in and visit. But if everybody was more active and engaged, the system would work a lot better.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Sandra. It was fun.
Thank you. So, everyone, stop in next time you see us again. Take care.